Hey, welcome back to Chaotic Evil Games. I'm Luke. Today I'm going to do a flip through and quick review of one of the more rare books in my collection, the Tome of Blood. And that's published by Fantasy Flight Games as part of their RPG Black Crusade. Years ago, when Fantasy Flight licensed the IP from Games Workshop, they produced 5 RPGs, all in a similar vein. Dark Heresy, Death Watch, Rogue Trader, Black Crusade, and Only War. The book we're looking at today is the Tome of Blood, and it is a companion book to the RPG Black Crusade. Easily the most grim and dark and brutal book in any RPG that I've probably ever seen. The cover art alone is enough to make me want to buy it and add it to my collection and play it. So without further ado, let's take a look at it. Alright, so here it is, the Tome of Blood for Black Crusade. Source book for the followers of Khorne. This is one of 4 books for Black Crusade, each dealing with the ruinous powers: Khorne, Siege, Nurgle, and Slaanesh. This is one of my favorite pieces of artwork in the entire 40k universe. Really powerful image that captures all the aesthetic of 40k. This is published by Fantasy Flight Games, and it's been out of print for I don't know how many years, quite a while. I'll check the copyright in the book and see when it was published, but right now everything is available on DriveThruRPG via Cubicle 7. They have all the IP for Black Crusade, Dark Heresy, Death Watch, Rogue Trader, and Only War, which are the 5 versions or iterations of Warhammer Roleplay that Fantasy Flight published back in the day. All gorgeous books, some of the most striking artwork that I've ever seen in an RPG. So you understand why understand why I wanted to do this flip through. I'm going to read the back cover and then just kind of go through the book and talk a little bit about it. I'm going to try and keep this video short. I'm getting kind of verbose in my flip throughs, and I want this to be entertaining as well as informative. So here we go. Khorne is the chaos god of rage and war. His demonic legions and mortal warriors live only for spilling blood and taking skulls in his name. And a lot of the book here, the first 30 pages, does a great job of reminding you about the blood and the skulls that Khorne needs. This book introduces 4 new heretic archetypes, along with deadly armaments, mighty demon engines, bloodthirsty demon weapons, and more for the frenzied disciples of the Lord of Carnage. Players of all alignments can now develop powerful, unique legacy weapons and fight in huge mass combats against the lackeys of the Imperium. More blood-soaked areas of the Screaming Vortex are revealed, such as the gladiator pits of Curse, furious savage oceans, the Xenos-infested worlds of Barin and Asphodel, and the infamous war moons of Talax. Heretics also go on an adventure into the deadly wastelands of Masia to wrest a legendary demon weapon from a vast mutant horde. Take up your chain axe and reap new skulls for the Blood God. Lots of fun. So in the inside cover, like all the books, we have a map of the galaxy. You see Masia right over here. There's Crucible, and that could be Messiah. I don't know. It's probably pronounced Messiah. But Messiah. Really cool artwork throughout this book, just from cover to cover. Here we've got, looking for the copyright date, 2012. So for a long time, I was always wanting to play RPGs. I'd see the D&D books at the little bookstore that I grew up going to, and I didn't get to play it. I didn't get to buy it. Eventually I bought it, and I always was interested in playing 40k, but didn't think I'd want to play didn't want to paint miniatures and stuff. That turned out to be wrong, and I thoroughly enjoy it. And I play World Eaters. I have about 3,000 points of World Eaters, and this book is right up my alley because it's all about World Eaters and Night Lords and Khorne. So I'm not going to read some of this. I'm just going to go through it when we actually get to the chapters. But this is basically just an expansion for Black Crusade. The first chapter here goes on and on about blood and skulls, blood for the blood god, war without end, Khorne's rage, the realm of brass blood, demon forges. Khorne's filled with hate. He doesn't care from where the blood flows. Blood pits, rivers of blood, lake of slaughter, throne of skulls, brass fortresses. Here we get into the servants of slaughter. Unfortunately, this book doesn't provide rules for you being able to actually play demons or bloodthirsters or demon princes, but they are detailed here in abundance. Gets into mortals, mutants, blood cults, war bands, chaos space marines. More fluff, more backstory and information. And then here on page 24, we get into information about the different archetypes that you can play in Black Crusade. You've got a Khorne Berserker, a Night Lord's Chaos Space Marine, a Zurant Frostfather, and a Kim Hunter of Messiah. History of the World Eaters is fun. It doesn't really present any new information if you're already familiar with the armies, but it is fun to kind of reread it. History of the Night Lords, their motivations. And here's the Khorne Berserker. And I'm going to read a little bit from each of the archetypes. Khorne Berserkers are commonly veterans of the Long War, purified through centuries of warfare to become utterly dedicated to close combat. Most are of the World Eaters, but other Chaos Space Marines have also become such devoted followers of the Blood God as to gain this title. They are known for being savage, reckless, bloodthirsty, brutal, and direct in all aspects, and are always eager to kill in the Blood God's name. Their existence exemplifies the path of war and violence that marks a true disciple of Khorne, and each is completely defined by his devotion. These Space Marines have little desire to avoid conflict or violence, instead seeking out and relishing any opportunity to accumulate skulls for Khorne's throne. Here is a picture of the Berserker. The stats over here, there's so many stats and talents and skills that I'm not really going to go through them all. I'll point out something, here and there with each one, but the game is pretty crunchy. There's a lot of data and a lot of stuff to put on the character sheet, but I really feel like because there's so much data and information, you can really tailor each archetype for the armies that you're familiar with, such as a Khorne Berserker. You can see their starting gear is a chain axe or a chain sword and a bolt pistol or a second chain axe, so that's just like the game. You typically see Berserkers with a chain axe and a chain sword. 2 frag grenades, 2 crack grenades, 16 plus 1d5 wounds. So, just like in the game, 40k, the tabletop, they have rules that show how they are, their rage and everything dominates their ability to maintain and do anything but seek out melee and kill the enemy. So here we've got Unstoppable Wrath. The depth of rage of these warriors is terrible to behold, even before the psychosurgeries that many gain, and often leads them to feats rarely equaled in combat. During combat, a Berserker may spend an infamy point to either make an opposed strength test to ignore a successful parry made against one of his attacks, or make a single challenging toughness test to ignore the effects of injury, stunning, fatigue, or even death for a single round. So, just like in the game, they are designed to, be impervious to pain and seeking out combat constantly. Here we have Night Lord's Space Marine, playing the Night Lord's Chaos Space Marine. The Night Lords are sadistic killers who delight in terrorizing their foes before slaughtering them without mercy or restraint. They are cruel, ruthless, and opportunistic, frequently striking at vulnerable targets and toying with their unfortunate victims. When they kill violently and slowly, savoring the pain and horror on their victims' faces as the last moments of life leave them. Such acts are not undertaken in honor of the Chaos Gods. Rather, a Night Lord's Chaos Space Marine kills because he can. Certainly there may be other motives behind his actions, but more often than not, that motive is only to wet his gauntlets in the blood of his victims. The Night Lord gains +5 strength and willpower, 15 corruption points, and +9 infamy. Legion Chainsword or Legion Power Sword. 2 frag grenades, 2 crack grenades, or demolition charges, and 1 melt-a-bomb. 15 plus 1d5 wounds. Spectral Haunter. Special ability, the Night Lords are renowned for their ability to utilize the cover of darkness and other adverse conditions to harass their prey. Penalties for attacking a Night Lord's Chaos Space Marine and bonuses to any stealth checks that combat circumstances grant based on visual hindrances are increased by 20. It's very wordy, it's very lengthy, and it's definitely a mouthful to get out what the rule does. It's not just +4 to hit or -20 to wound or whatever. It's a little bit more involved. Alright, here we have Zurant Frostfathers, an archetype, a human archetype. I'm not familiar with these guys. Let's see what it says over here. The nomads of Zurant, known as the Zur, continually migrate across the vast prairies of the planet's surface, seeking only to enslave and conquer any other tribes they encounter. It is a brutal existence, beginning when each is taught to ride Zuransh from the earliest possible age. This planet-wide struggle for dominance continues until winter, when the Zur focus instead on surviving the harsh conditions or ritually honoring their bloody god Baftar as one of his towering idols. Pretty cool. Zurant Frostfather must be a human. It says down here you can also be titles masculine, but they deserve respectability regardless of gender, so the characters can also be a female. The Zurant Frostfather gains +5 to strength, +5 weapon skill, +3 to willpower, +3 to fellowship, 15 corruption points, and 9 infamy. They have a variety of skills like athletics, acrobatics, command, intimidate, dodge, parry, linguistics, navigation, all sorts of skills and abilities for this human archetype. Starting gear, good craftsmanship, great weapon with the mono upgrade, or best craftsmanship axe or best craftsmanship sword with the mono upgrade. Wounds are 11 plus 1d5. So like a nomadic tribal type of human survivalist, or really cool. It says they worship a bloody god Baftar, and I would assume that's just a different culture's interpretation of Khorne. During the winter months, the warlords of the most powerful tribes that retain the honor of encamping around one of Baftar's idols perform ritual combats, rites, and sacrifices to seek their god's favor. By spring, the few remaining warriors are rightly feared by the other Zur for their legendary fury and the dark gifts they frequently exhibit. However, along with other blessings, Baftar is said to grant a special boon to the leader of these chosen of Baftar. The last archetype is a Kim Hunter of Messiah. See him down here, he kind of looks like a cultist or whatever from 40k. Kim Hunters are skilled and deadly killers who are used to surviving in spite of desperate odds. They tend towards wild and reckless behavior, seeming to care little about the potential pitfalls of their actions. These nomads operate as mercenaries and guides that sell their services to the highest bidder, which on Messiah usually means working for the notorious drill barons. They are also proficient mechanics, most having to salvage and repair their vehicles under rather frantic circumstances. Almost sounds like a Mad Max type of situation, working on their cars under a frantic circumstance. They must be human, +5 to ballistic skill or weapon skill, +5 to strength or toughness, and +5 to perception. A lot of the same skills that we saw in the last human, the Berserker Charge or Street Fighting, Unarmed Warrior, Cold-Hearted, Counterattack talents. Start with the Auto Gun or Las Gun, Automatic or Stub Revolver, Chain Sword or Chain Axe, Respirator, Gas Mask. Habitual User special ability. Chem Hunters encounter toxins so often that their bodies have become quite resilient. When administering a dose of drug or stimulant, a Chem Hunter can choose to add +10 to any skill test bonus gained, +1 to any characteristic bonuses gained, or an extra die roll to the duration of a drug's effects. However, the required dose is so large that he suffers a negative 10 penalty to the willpower test to resist addiction. When determining availability, treat the dose of the drug as standard size. So, right there, kids. Just say no. Drugs are bad. They give you a little bonus at first, you get some extra work done, but before you know it, you're addicted and your stats start to plummet. Life is in the toilet and you look like this guy. Don't be like him. He doesn't look like he can last too long in the warp. The Berserker standing on his neck. So here we've got the Blades of Blood. This is a chapter with all new weapons. There's not a whole lot of ranged weapons because apparently that's just not what Khorne is into, but there's a ton of melee weapons. Your standard combi weapons, the Melta, Plasma, and Flamer. We've got a Boiler Cannon, which sounds pretty awesome, and then a Mark IV Thresher support gun. A locally produced variant of the Econ pattern Assault Stubber. I think this is found on the planet Messiah, which is where the adventure that's in this book is based. All kinds of melee weapons. I think my favorite is the Chain Hammer over here. Few but the massive pit brutes of Kurz can lift this weapon, let alone use it in combat. It combines the heavy striking power of a great hammer with the terrible ripping action of a chain weapon, using multiple rows of spinning metal teeth projecting from the club-like head to tear apart flesh pulped in the smashing impact. This is a two-handed melee weapon and requires a strength bonus of 4 before it can be used. So, right there, that's why this channel is called Chaotic Evil Games, because that's exactly what this is here. And then we've got the stat lines for the melee weapons. The Chain Hammer, 2d10 plus 6. Concussive, tearing, unwieldy, weighs 20 kilograms. It's very rare, so, you know, super brutal weapon. Sliver net, sickle sword, trident, heavy shield, rune swords. It gets into demon weapons, where you can unlock the demons that are within the weapons. Berserker glaive, forge whip, gore whip, and the great axe of Khorne over here. I mean, that's legendary weapon you see all over 40k and Age of Sigmar. The Heart Ripper. I wish they had a picture of that. I think this is not the Heart Ripper down here. That's some kind of... I wish they had a picture of the Heart Ripper. That would be fun. Here's the demon weapons up here. The Great Axe of Khorne, 3d10, devastating, proven, unbalanced, impossibly sharp. There's the Infernal Star. So, I mean, if you play World Eaters like I do, and you want to play Black Crusade, then, I mean, this book is just going to speak your language, for lack of a better term. It's everything that you'd want, everything you're familiar with your army. Here you have two different Khornate minions, the Blood Caller and the Brass Harbinger. Mounted Riders, you've got different rules for mounts. I didn't see the actual rules for the mount, or what you're able to mount, like a bike or a flesh hound or something. Oh, here they are. Legion Combat Bike, Pounder Beast. Huge fleshly creatures thrive on many worlds within the Screaming Vortex, and despite their aggressive nature, become reliable beasts of burden for many heretics. There's a Fury and Sea Skimmer, Messiah and Outrider, Gore Driver, You can create new mounts here too. So, I mean, if you've played 40k and you want to get into some RPGs, this is your opportunity. This is it right here. Fantasy Flight came up with, 5 different gaming systems that would appeal to anybody, no matter what army or flavor of 40k you enjoy. These are legacy weapons, how to create legacy weapons, how to write adventures around them, go on an adventure or a quest searching for a legacy weapon, which is what's in the back of this book here. Here we've got abilities for the weapons. Tons of killer artwork. I mean, this one looks pretty old, but that's just some of my favorite artwork. I mean, the artwork for 40k is impressive, but then this is like a whole new level of grimdark. So I'm flipping a little fast here. Expanded rites and rituals. The rites and rituals presented in the Black Crusade core rulebook give a general overview of how both the GM and players can construct rituals to suit their own needs. The consequences of failure in a number of example rituals are used to summon the more iconic chaos demons. So again, you've got specific stuff to Khorne in this book here. Masters of Destruction. Advanced horde rules, mass combats and battles, worlds of the blood god, demons of Khorne. Look at this guy. I didn't spend a lot of time in this chapter. It's just not something that's come up in my games, but I figured if I wanted to play a mass combat, we could just switch over to 40k and play it out that way. But this has rules that will look familiar, like Overwatch, suppressing fire, knockdown, but then you have more melee actions than you otherwise would in a typical 40k game, like grapple and knockdown. You've got formations, there's different methods of running it. Like I said, I didn't spend a whole lot of time in this. I'm sure it's just as impressive as the rest of the game, the RPG. Here we've got some more characters and stat lines for creatures you'd find on different planets, their inhabitants. Here's some orc boys of Baron, Weird Boy, Mech Boys, Crucible, Bloodthirster, a Bloodthirster Master, 195 wounds. That's a lot. That's a lot when you've only got 16 plus 1d5. Goreclaw the Render. That looks pretty intense. It's Fleshhounds, Furia, Leviathans. Leviathan Master, 500 wounds. Definitely a fun game to get mixed up in. Finding players can be difficult. Everyone typically flocks to D&D or something like that. My 40k group, we talked quite a bit about picking this game up, but never quite got to it. We got some characters rolled up, and then that was about as far as we got. But it's definitely fun when you get it going. Just all kinds of opportunities for creativity and creating your own adventures. They give you just enough of an outline, you can kind of do your own thing, just make it up as you go. That's what I kind of liked about 40k. You could have a tabletop game, but not really have to have all the background unless you wanted it. There's plenty of background if you want it, but if you don't want it, you can still have a great afternoon of playing a game without getting caught up in the canon of what happened where. So, and here's the adventure, Red Dawn Rising. This is, I'll read the introduction and see if it's interesting to you. I thought it sounded really cool. Red Dawn Rising is a Black Crusade adventure that plunges the heretics into all-out warfare in the pursuit of a powerful weapon, one powerful enough that they might one day use it to gain ascendancy over all their rivals within the Screaming Vortex. This weapon, spoken of in odd tones as the Axe of Ka-Aksha, is a mighty axe in which a bloodthirster of Khorne is entrapped and located on the planet of Messiah. But, as every true champion of the Blood God knows, such treasures are rarely to be claimed without a challenge. The axe is not lying around waiting to be picked up, but is instead in the possession of one of the countless millions of bloated mutants that shamble across the surface of Messiah's night side. How the mutant came into possession of the axe cannot be known, but when the tortured light of Messiah's polluted sun falls upon that wretched creature, it shall be transformed into a cunning and devious adversary, and at that very moment realize the true nature of the weapon clutched unthinkingly in its distended, filth-encrusted claws. When that happens, the once lowly mutant will have in its possession the means of laying claim to an entire world. Well, we just can't have that, so sounds like a great setup for an adventure. Red Dawn Rising is intentionally very open in its nature, and the heretics are free to explore the wastes of Messiah and interact with the drill barons and other inhabitants any way they like. Should the game master wish to impose a more rigid structure on events, however, there are two main ways of doing it. So there's, like I said, it gives you a good outline like any good RPG, and then lets you do what you want with it. It doesn't railroad you at all. There's attention paid to the NPCs, there's attention paid to the locations, the motivations of the NPCs. Let's see if we can find the stat lines for the axe in question. Let's see if they're in here. I don't see it. I skipped over it. But that's the book. That's it in a nutshell. There's definitely more here that could be much more here to be experienced than what I presented. So I hope you gained something from it. Had an opportunity to take a look at this really rare book. I'm gonna hold on to it. I think put it away and probably pick up the PDF from DriveThruRPG, because this one needs to stay clean and undamaged for here in the next 18 years when my daughter's ready for college. Maybe I'll get rid of it then. That'll help out with tuition. But yeah, definitely take a look at DriveThruRPG. I'll put some links in the description. You can pick this up along with all the stuff from Black Crusade or Death Watch or whatever 40k roleplay that you're into. Alright, stay tuned for the next episode. Hit the like, subscribe button, and leave me a comment below. Thanks for watching.